Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It started with a broken lamp. That's how these things always go, right? Something stupid, something small, something no one remembers later except me. I remember everything. The lamp was a wedding gift from her aunt. Ugly, crooked, always gave off this weird green glow. I bumped into it, reaching for my shoes. It shattered. She sighed like I had knocked over the Eiffel Tower. Didn't even look up from her phone. Of course, you break everything. I just stood there, broom in hand, staring at the mess, wondering how long someone can feel like furniture in their own marriage before they just stop working altogether. That was Tuesday. By Saturday, I was in a living room filled with strangers who smiled too hard and drank wine like it was a personality trait. Her crowd, her scene. I was the accessory again, wearing the shirt she laid out for me, nodding at people I'd never see again. Everything was fine, until it wasn't. She was holding a glass of rose, laughing with 3 of her yoga friends. I was nearby, not close, but not far enough that she could pretend I wasn't there. That's when she dropped it. He's afraid to even hug me. I didn't move. I don't even think I blinked. Her friends giggled like they were on cue, and I did the thing I never do. I spoke loudly, unlike your trainer, right? Her smile cracked mid-sip. One of her friends actually gasped. She turned slowly like a horror movie character who realizes the ghost is behind her. And just like that, every sound in the room vanished. No music, no conversation, just that awful pause when truth punches through the noise. I wish I could tell you I had a plan, that I was clever, but the words just came out. They came from somewhere I didn't know existed. Somewhere hurt had been sitting quietly for years. She stared at me with those eyes shiny and sharp. Not because she was surprised, but because she'd been caught. And suddenly, I knew that whisper, that comment wasn't just cruel, it was cover, it was guilt. People talk about silence like it's peaceful. But there's a kind that's not the kind that shows up when everyone in the room hears something they weren't supposed to. The kind that feels like a scream with no sound. That's what I heard after I said it. Unlike your trainer, right? And just like that, the air snapped in half. Her friends suddenly way too interested in their glasses. One of them slowly walked off like maybe disappearing would undo what she just witnessed. Molina stood still, wine tilted, mouth open just enough to prove she didn't see it coming. But she should have. She should have seen it months ago. I'd been noticing things, small stuff at first. Her phone always face down, her workouts lasting just a little too long. One night she came home glowing, literally glowing, saying she had just finished a deep tissue stretch session. And I, like an idiot, believed her. But I wasn't ready to say anything. Not until she humiliated me. That night, though, saying I was scared to hug her, that wasn't just rude. It was revealing because only someone hiding something says that loud enough for others to hear. Like she needed to shift the blame before anyone asked questions. And here's the kicker. I didn't know for sure about the trainer. It was just an awful, bitter hunch. But the second she locked eyes with me in that silent room, her reaction was all the confirmation I needed. Not guilt, not confusion, just pure, blinding fear. She snapped out of it fast. "Ellis," she hissed, grabbing my arm hard enough to bruise. "Can we please talk outside?" Outside? Oh, yeah, away from the crowd, away from the witnesses. I didn't say anything. I just followed like the good, spineless husband I was always supposed to be. We stepped into the backyard, and before the door even shut, she exploded. "What the hell was that? Are you trying to ruin my career, my reputation? You don't just say things like that in public." I looked at her for a long moment. And for the first time in years, I saw someone I didn't know. She wasn't embarrassed that I accused her. She was furious that I dared to say it in front of others. "You know what?" I said quietly. "You're not even denying it." Her lips parted. She froze. Then came the deflection. "Do you know how insane you sound? I can't believe I brought you here." "No, I replied. You brought me here because your usual backup canceled. You needed a stand-in accessory and I was available. That's when I saw her flinch. And that's when I knew I'd hit something true. She didn't scream, didn't throw a drink. She just turned around and walked back into the house like I didn't exist. And I stood there alone in a stranger's backyard, wondering how many years I had spent becoming someone invisible. And just like that, the party was over. Not theirs. I didn't leave the party right away. I stood out there like an idiot, staring at the garden lights, trying to pretend I wasn't trembling. It wasn't the cold. It was everything else. 8 years of quiet swallowing, of shrinking myself to fit inside her spotlight. And now that I'd said something real out loud, I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't undo the way she looked at me like I was a dog that had finally bitten back. Eventually, I walked home. Yes, walked. She drove us there and I didn't even ask for the keys. I just left. My phone buzzed once while I was 3 blocks away. Just a text from her that said, "You embarrassed me. Stay away tonight." That was it. Not "Are you okay?" or "Can we talk?" No, just stay away like I was the problem. I ended up crashing at my friend Marshall's place. Well, friend is generous. He's a guy I used to game with before Melina convinced me it was childish. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly a year, but when I showed up at his door, eyes red and jacket soaked from walking through drizzle, he didn't even ask, just nodded and let me in. We sat on his old couch eating stale chips while I tried to pretend I wasn't unraveling in front of someone who had a Spider-Man lamp in his living room. The next day, I went back home to get clothes. And that's when it got real. I tried my key in the door and it didn't work. First, I thought maybe I was twisting it wrong. Maybe the lock was sticking, but no, the locks had been changed. I knocked, confused. Nothing. I rang the bell twice. Finally, Melina answered through the Ring intercom like I was a delivery guy. I stood there shocked, listening to her voice filtered through a speaker in my own home. "I need space," she said flatly. "And I need to protect my peace." "Are you serious right now?" I asked, stepping closer. "You're locking me out of my own house because I embarrassed you?" She didn't answer that. She just added, "I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll be getting paperwork soon. I think it's best we take time to reflect." No rage, no tears, just this cold, polished detachment like she was closing a business deal. I couldn't even see her face. I stood there for a while after the intercom cut off, realizing that everything was already in motion. The speed, the precision. She had this lined up. This wasn't spontaneous. She had contingency plans. And I had nothing. I walked away from that door not knowing where I was headed. But I knew one thing. This wasn't about embarrassment. She wasn't reacting to my outburst. She was eliminating a liability before I could expose something worse. And I had a sick feeling I'd barely scratched the surface. I didn't sleep that night. Not at Marshall's place. Not even after I tried to drink my thoughts into silence with 2 warm beers and half a frozen burrito. My brain wouldn't stop playing everything in loops. The way she laughed at the party, the tone she used on the intercom, the quiet confidence that told me she wasn't just reacting, she was executing. That part scared me the most. She wasn't shocked. She was prepared. By sunrise, I was pacing. I had nothing to do, nowhere to go, and no real proof of what I'd accused her of. Just a gut feeling. And the way her face drained when I said the word trainer. That should have been enough to walk away, right? But it wasn't. It never is when you've spent nearly a decade convincing yourself that love means patience and silence. Around noon, I made the worst and best decision I could have made. I went to her gym not to see her. That would have been too obvious. I waited outside across the street, hidden behind my dusty windshield. I parked like a stalker. And honestly, that's what I felt like. But something in me said, stay. Something in me said I'd find what I wasn't ready for. And I did. At 1:27 p.m., she walked out of the glass doors with him. I knew it was him. He was tall, tan, way too enthusiastic about nothing. They were laughing, too close, too casual, and she touched his chest when she laughed, like she forgot for a second she was married. I didn't take pictures. I didn't yell. I just watched. They got into his car. I waited 5 minutes. Then I drove around the block, pulled into the lot, and parked next to the dumpster like I worked there. When she left his car 30 minutes later alone this time, I stayed still. She didn't see me. She walked right past adjusting her leggings and retying her hair. Not even a glance back. That's when I walked over to his car. And yes, I know how insane this sounds, but I had to know. The car was unlocked. I opened the passenger side like I had a right to. My heart was slamming in my chest so hard I thought I'd pass out. I didn't rummage. I just looked. And sitting right there in the cup holder like a trap waiting for me was a folded receipt. One line item. Hotel Day Pass. $7,800, 0 room, 2:13, 12 p.m. to 3:00 p.m. My hands went cold. That was today. That was right now. I backed away from the car like it had caught fire. That's when it hit me. Not just that she was cheating, but how brazen she was about it. The locks weren't changed because she was scared. The party humiliation wasn't an accident. All of it was groundwork plan, a quiet campaign to paint me as unstable, embarrassing, emotional. So when the truth finally came out, no one would believe me. And in that moment, I realized something that hurt more than all the lies combined. This wasn't a betrayal. It was a setup. I told myself I'd throw the receipt away, that I wouldn't do anything stupid with it. But I didn't. I folded it up and kept it in my wallet like it was some cursed relic. Proof that the reality I'd avoided all year was now living right in front of me. I drove around for hours that day, not to anywhere in particular, just moving. Because the idea of sitting still made it feel like I'd fall apart. That night around 11, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. No name, no greeting, just a woman's voice, calm and professional, saying, "Your checkout from room 213 is scheduled for noon. Please don't forget to leave your keycard at the desk." That was it, less than 10 seconds. I played it 5 times before it hit me. She had used my number when checking in. My name. And I don't know what made me do it. Maybe spite, or maybe just pure desperation. But I called the hotel back. I gave them my name and said I'd lost the invoice from my stay earlier that day. The woman on the other end didn't hesitate. "Not a problem, Mr. Graham. Would you like that emailed or printed?" I paused. "Can you read me the charges?" She listed them off like it was routine. Room 213, 3 hours. 2 beverages from the mini fridge and the name of the second guest on the record, Melina Graham. She hadn't even bothered to use a fake last name. She was so confident I wouldn't find out. She didn't think she had to cover her tracks. My ears were ringing when I hung up. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I finally let it out and my whole chest ached. So now I had proof. Real, undeniable proof. Not just a guess or a look or a receipt. Her name was in their system. Her voice had called me by mistake. But the part that hurt more than the betrayal itself was that it confirmed what I had feared all along. She had been using my identity to make the affair more convenient. She was dragging my name through her lies. I sat in the car outside Marshall's apartment for a full hour after that. Couldn't go in, couldn't talk, couldn't even cry. The only thing running through my mind was one question. How long has she been using me as her alibi? Because if this happened once, it probably wasn't the first time. And the deeper I thought, the more puzzle pieces began shifting into place. Her weekend retreats, her client trips, her late-night Zoom calls. The trainer wasn't just a fling. He was part of something bigger, something planned. And I had just stepped into the middle of it. 2 days passed after that voicemail, and I didn't reach out to her, not once. I didn't scream, didn't demand answers, didn't even send her the hotel receipt. And that silence that made her panic. She expected a meltdown. She expected fireworks. But I gave her fog. That's when the call started. Missed call, then another, then 5 in a row. No voicemails, just empty signals. I watched the phone ring and didn't touch it. I wanted her to sweat, even if I was the one drowning. By the third day, she texted, "We need to talk. I'm willing to be honest, but only if you're calm." That sentence broke something in me. Only if you're calm. That's the kind of thing you say to someone unstable. That's when I realized she wasn't just lying to me. She was painting me. And I could feel it happening in real time. She was building a narrative where I'd lose by default. The angry husband, the insecure man, the reason she strayed. And worst of all, she knew she'd be believed. She always was. But I still needed answers, so I agreed to meet her. Neutral ground, a diner we used to go to before things got cold. I got there early, sat in a corner booth, and tried to remember what it felt like to eat in peace. She arrived 10 minutes late, dressed too nicely for a casual talk. Like even now she needed to win something. She sat across from me, folded her hands, and said, "I'm not going to lie, but you need to be an adult about this." I didn't speak. I just looked at her and let her fill the silence. She told me the trainer's name was Jesse, that it just happened, that it started last spring after a retreat, that she hadn't planned it, but he made her feel seen. And she dropped the line I think every betrayed spouse hears eventually. "You stopped trying." I was lonely. I laughed, not out loud. Just a small exhale through my nose. Because that's what cheaters always say, right? They were lonely. As if loneliness gave you a coupon for betrayal. As if I wasn't lonely too. Lonely in a marriage where I was invisible. She said it was over with Jesse now. That I had exaggerated everything. That I had embarrassed her. But she was willing to forgive the outburst if we could move on. And that's when I realized this wasn't a confession. It was a negotiation. She didn't come to apologize. She came to manage me. I slid the hotel receipt across the table without a word. She looked at it, blinked, smirked. "Wow," she said, "you really are obsessive." And that was it. No tears, no regret, just blame. Aimed right back at me. That's when I stood up and walked out. Not because I was angry, but because I finally saw the truth. I had never really been her husband. I was her cover, her public face, the reliable guy she could blame when her private life got messy. I was her excuse for everything she did behind closed doors. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want revenge. I wanted a clean break. But Melina wasn't done playing. Not yet. After walking out of that diner, I felt hollow, but weirdly calm, not strong, not healed, just quiet. That kind of quiet you feel when there's nothing left to shout. I drove for hours without a destination. No music, no calls, just the hum of tires on pavement. I didn't cry. I think part of me wanted to, but it's like my body had locked that part away, afraid I'd fall apart if I gave it permission. What hit hardest wasn't the cheating. It was that she looked me in the eye, saw how shattered I was, and still tried to spin the story in her favor. Like she was afraid of losing control, not me. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. The next morning, I got a knock on Marshall's door. 2 officers, calm, professional. One of them had that default expression cops use when they don't want to scare you. But no, they probably will. Ellis Graham. "Yes, we received a call from your wife. She reported that you've been showing signs of emotional instability and may pose a risk to yourself or others." I stood there stunned, thinking it had to be a mistake. But no, they were serious. They asked to come in and talk. They said it was just a wellness check, that Melina had been concerned. My mouth went dry. My hands started shaking. Melina had officially made her move. I sat down and answered every question. I told them about the party, the trainer, the hotel receipt. They listened, took notes, asked if I owned any weapons. I said no. Asked if I had any intention of harming her or myself. Again, no. I stayed calm because I knew this wasn't about danger. It was about narrative. She wasn't trying to protect herself. She was trying to erase me before I could tell the truth. After 20 minutes, they left. One of them even apologized, said he understood how these things could get messy during separation, but the damage was done. She had filed a formal report, which meant it would be on record. That night, I checked my email, and there it was, an official notice from her lawyer. She had filed for divorce. The attached statement painted me as volatile, emotionally reactive, and possibly unstable. She cited irreconcilable differences, but included a veiled suggestion that I might need counseling before future contact would be safe. Safe. That word made my skin crawl because now I wasn't just the husband who got cheated on. I was the threat. And it all made sense now. Why she pushed me at the party. Why she made that dig in front of her friends. Why she provoked a reaction. She needed a moment she could use. And I gave her one. But what she didn't know, what she never imagined, was that I had already made copies of the hotel receipt, the call log, the text messages, even security footage from the gym's parking lot, which I had requested through a buddy who used to work there. She had started the war, and now I wasn't just surviving it. I was preparing to fight back. The first time I stepped into the courtroom, I felt like I was walking into a trap. Her attorney was polished, her posture was perfect, and every word in her affidavit made me sound like a ticking time bomb. They wanted to paint me as unstable, reactive, dangerous. I kept hearing that word, dangerous, as if heartbreak turned me into something unrecognizable. But I came prepared. I handed over everything. The hotel receipt with her name, the voicemail she left by accident, photos of her and Jesse entering the hotel, a printed transcript of the gym security log showing she'd been meeting him weekly for over 3 months under my name. The best part, a casual selfie she had posted that same day on her coaching Instagram with the caption, "Pushing clients to new limits today." That picture taken during the hours she was booked in a hotel under my name. Her lawyer looked rattled. She didn't say much that day, just sat there, lips tight, eyes darting as each piece of evidence tore her story apart. The judge, he barely looked at her once I was done presenting. His eyes locked on me the whole time. Not because I was loud or dramatic, but because I was calm. I told the truth. I didn't scream. I didn't insult. I just told the story she tried to bury. The judge ruled in my favor. No restrictions, no counseling requirement. She was ordered to vacate the house within 30 days. And I was granted ownership of our joint business savings account because she used marital funds for personal expenses she tried to hide. The day she moved out, she barely said a word. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. But I wasn't waiting for closure anymore. I stood at the window, arms crossed as she loaded the last of her boxes into Jesse's back seat. He never looked up. Coward. When the car pulled away, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. That night, I sat in the house alone. Really alone. No noise, no accusations, no tension, just quiet. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful. Melina thought she was ending my life by leaving, but she didn't end it. She returned it. If you've ever had someone try to rewrite the truth and you took the pen back, share your moment in the comments. What's your receipt under the seat moment? And as always, thanks for watching.